moved, the person also moved
Yeah.
by their own story. So it's a very exciting time. Live show is a very exciting time for me.
Well, emotions are definitely very catching. You know, if we were all depressed in here and you came in a pretty good mood, you'd be like, well, okay, I can't really, like, you just have to. It's sort of like you can pull people up or bring them down depending on how you feel and how you express things. So the job, I guess, as an interviewer for all of us is to create a scene where it's comfortable to share and it feels good and it's like feels natural. It's just the right thing to do in this world that we're in right now. Talking about ourselves is a good thing, you know. It might not be anywhere else, but it is right here. So that's what we do it. And don't worry about these things here and sticking in your face, which are like, what is that thing? So yeah, interesting. Uh-huh. You're nodding. What does that mean?
You know, it's so fascinating to me to see everyone's different interview styles and yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah, interview styles. Well, it is a common theme amongst our various professions, I would say. And it's something that we try to do is have conversations that are meaningful and rewarding. I think you want it to be rewarding. I want everybody I talk to walk out of here feeling like, oh, that was fun. I enjoyed that. That was a good conversation. I really felt like I wish I'd said this too, because that would have been neat, you know, like wanting to even add more to it, wanting more to be there rather than go, that was a waste of an hour of my life, you know.
Do you find that, I don't know how many years you've been doing this, but the folks that you interview, do they tend to kind of clam up when there's a microphone in their face or the camera is on?
Some do. But most of them, like she was saying about her show, over time relax. And partly I go out of my way to be comfortable. I am not necessarily as comfortable a person as I appear at this moment. I mean, I have my own sense of anxiety and, you know, all those different kinds of things, but I make it a point to just like lock that all away and come here and like, I'm perfectly relaxed. I'm just sitting here. I'll say silly things or whatever. I do that in part to create this atmosphere where like, well, he's so relaxed. There's no way I can be as tense as, you know, it's hard to be tense with somebody that's relaxed. It just calms them down. And the more in control and comfortable you feel, the more that you provide an anchor to the person that you're talking to. Even if they're full of anxiety, they're like, well, at least when I'm with you, I'm okay. I can stand behind you and you'll do all the hard part. And, you know,
it's a safe place.
Yeah. Because I work with volunteers a lot in different groups that I'm with. And so I found that everyone is just looking, not everyone, but, you know, most people are just looking for the one person that knows or appears to know what they're doing. That's why people always fall for authoritarians and things like that, is because most of us have that sort of, you know, sense that they're a fraud. You know, what's that called? It's there's a term for it.
Imposter syndrome?
Yes, thank you. Imposter syndrome. You know, where it's like, okay, I'm a professional, I'm an adult, or whatever that thing is, but I don't really feel like it, you know. I've never been here before. I'm not sure what to do here.
Right.
You know, and if somebody can come in and go, here's what we're doing. Here's what we do here. And they seem perfectly at ease with the situation. And you're like, oh, good. Someone that knows what they're doing, as long as I follow them, I will be okay because they are okay. And I think the same thing is true with interviewing of any sort, is like if you go into the conversation without, you're not comfortable with what the conversation's about, or the fact that you're having it, or the fact that I've never seen you before in my life and suddenly I'm talking to you, then they're going to be, they will just mirror that. They can't help it, you know. But if you go into it comfortable, like, I've known you all my life. We grew up together, you know, and I treat you like that, then you'll be like, oh, okay, well, I guess it's okay to be me because he's reacting to me as if I'm okay. So I think, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong. You're both looking at me and nodding, so I'm assuming that I'm not wrong. But don't you find that you have to carry most of the weight of your interviews or your research with people? You have to carry that weight. They'll come along to a certain extent, but you have to start it going, and you have to keep it going for as long as it's going to go. And however you do that, it's your job, it's your work to do that, right? Yes, no?
Yeah.
I keep flipping back and forth there. I must look pretty weird.
And I don't know. My research interview is most important, but after interview I should write about something.
Right.
So interview is to open the mind, to make a dialogue. It is interview, but more difficult to write. I couldn't write all of the interview, so just pick up. So writing is a different purpose we have.
Yeah.
So most of, if I had 20 hours interview, long interview, but I just write just 15 minutes like that. So it depends on the topics that depend on. But if 20 hours I interviewed, I just use 1 hour's interviews content. But 19 hours interview I cannot use. So I'm very sorry with 19 hours interview, so rich content, rich he or she talked. But for my purpose to write a book or write a paper like that. So the writing, any article, any papers, any books have a purpose to that. So I should delete the other things. That's a more conflict for me.
Yeah.
So radio show is, I'm happy to become medium, not show myself, but to just medium to open the people and the very fantastic story we can pick up and to bring the audience. That's my work. But the writing is a bit different. I am author, so I should decide what topics, what I want to write and why. So the interview and the writing are a bit different. Even depend on the interview. Base is writing is based on the interview, even though the writing and interview it's a different level behavior. So
well, you have that too, right?
Yeah, writing is kind of a position of power, right? Like you have the ability to completely control someone's narrative, which is kind of scary to some people. And with radio, you're absolutely right. You're almost just like part of the medium, and I think that's beautiful.
Yeah. It is, but it's also easy. It's very, because at the end of this, I can walk away and never think about it again, whereas you will have to figure out how this fits into your research, and you have to figure out how this fits into your story, or if it does. And so I got it made, man. This is the job. You're on the wrong side of the table here.
but so that's we make our zine.
Yeah.
So if I wrote the article, academic article in some professional journal like that, the usually the person who gave me their story, they cannot read, or they are not interested in such kind of academic writing.
Right.
So, but we make this kind of zines more not a big story, but each person's stories we make zine, grassroots media zine, we said. Then each story I wrote and make self-published paper we wrote and gave we say informant, the person who talk. their story, then that they could read or draft they could read and enjoy or criticize to me. That's we didn't say like that. I don't like that person like this. So they could give me comments, but in the academic paper or journal article, they could give me the comment like that honestly. So zine is easily to make some space for any person could come and could give comment and
It's more collaborative.
collaborate and create. Finally, when I write the book, it is more difficult. They couldn't give me comments. Finally, they could give comments, but I cannot change. But zine could be make more collaboratively. So I love to make zine, to share the information and exchange information and criticize each other. That is a good, that's a different kind of media, I think.
Yeah, zines are more personal.
Personal, yeah, but personal, not like dialogue.
No, but it's personal in that it's coming, the whole process is coming from you. You do, it's not like a book, you write it out and send it somewhere and somebody goes, and then sends it back and forth a few times, and then you may look at photos and go, I like that one, and they go, okay, and then it becomes a cover. But the zine is like everything is you, every aspect of it, from the binding to the paper to the artwork to everything that goes in there is comes out of you in some way. So it's a more personal statement, and at the same time it's more disposable because it didn't cost $1 million to make it. So like you say, if somebody goes, that's not really what I meant to say here, you go, oh, I'll just change it, and you just change it, and the next issue is different. You can't do that with a book quite as easily, although some people try.
So we can use a different kind of media.
So that's another kind of media.
Have you spoken about your zine on air before?
Not a whole lot, because the topic is so completely, it's unrelated, at least to anything I have a show about. I have a couple of shows, and one is immigration, which is this, which we have yet to even mention. So I'm mentioning immigration too, since that's the topic of the show. And the other is like Native American issues that I do a show about. So I don't know. I think you've discussed the zine a little bit on your show.
Our show, Harukana show, sometimes I have such kind of topics, zine or DIY. In Japan also, more younger generation, the 20s, 30s, they are interested in DIY. And especially zine. I didn't know the term zine.
Yeah.
So 5 years ago, 6 years, 7 years ago, I didn't know the zine. But recently, the younger person, they say zine, like here. And they published by themselves. And now, easy to make zine, the desktop and print out and bind by themselves and exchange. So I'm very interested in why now zine in Japan. And in here, first I find zine here, and you saw the zine library. And what is the zine? I didn't know, so I said zain. Like that. Zain. I thought that's cool. Zain, like that. But when I go back to Japan, then I find zines getting popular.
Yeah.
So in the Harukana show also that we talked about the zine or DIY. Why not the younger generation interested in such kind of things in the information age, in the
Do you have any theories?
Why younger people are interested?
Why zines are making a comeback?
Yes, I do, as a matter of fact. I feel that it's sort of a reaction to consumer culture. So if you think over the years, younger people have been bombarded with more and more messages about what to buy and what to wear, and so everything is from a store, a name brand, designer names, and all those sorts of things. So you have these generations, each one growing up with even further embedded in this culture of everything comes from somewhere else, and it's disposable. It comes in, you buy it, you don't fix it, you don't develop any personal relationship with it, you buy it, use it till it stops working, throw it away and get a new one. Or use it until a new one comes out and go, oh, that's even cooler, and I'll get that. So I feel anyway that the rise of DIY culture, do it yourself for the listener who doesn't know what that means, is in part a reaction to that, just a sense of like, I want something that's mine. I wanted something that I made that I can do. And the proliferation of software that allows you to do some things easily is amazing. I mean, when I started out in music, if you wanted to learn a song, you had to sit there and listen to the record, you know, like you're learning the guitar part. You listen to it like, what are they doing? You didn't sit there and play it like, no, I can't. And you'd have to listen to it over and over again, and then you just invent some way of doing something that sounds kind of like that. And that's how you learned music. So now, if I want to learn a guitar part, I would go on YouTube and say, you know, guitar chart for this song, and I could see somebody playing it in slow motion. I could download the chords. I can do all that stuff, and I just know it. I know it exactly. I know what settings they used on their amp. You know, I know all those things because someone has compiled that information and shared it, which is cool. But at the same time, you've lost that personal sense of discovery, like, oh, that's how they did that. You know, you'll play it 100 times and then you kind of go, aha, and you discover this thing. So over the years, we've moved farther and farther away from any sort of sense that I did that this came from me. And so I feel, this is a very long explanation for a short question, that the rise of DIY stuff is based in part around people just wanting to make something. And it's my own. I made this. Here, I'm giving this to you. This is a piece of me, you know. It's the only one. And you have it now. So I'm saying you're something special to me because I gave you this thing that no one else has. You know, and I think that's just, there's something about that. Having lived a life of doing creative work, I've always known that satisfaction in one way or another, but I think a lot of people haven't. So when they discover some opportunity for that, it's like, oh, wow, I can do that, you know? That's my theory.
Well, I agree. As someone who's in the beginning stages of making her own scene.
You'll like it.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I mean, for someone who's in a creative profession, a lot of the creativity gets sucked out in the end.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have a whole lot of say over the way that things look.
No.
Oftentimes I have no idea what the headline is,
right,
what the photography looks like, how it looks on the page. And when you spend months working on a story only to have it look nothing like what you imagine, that can be kind of heartbreaking. And I'm so excited to really just have something that is completely my own, and for it to be this big collaborative thing. I'm so excited to like, you know, just be a curator rather than the person that's worried about like how every little word looks.
I think you'll get a lot of satisfaction out of it, and that was kind of the purpose behind doing sort of, I would almost call this the first draft of the book, as a zine, as a series of zines. You know, was just a way of going, all right, we've got all this stuff. How can we even begin doing something? So we could sit down and try and write it as a book without ever being able to look at it. You know, you're in the middle of it. You're surrounded by it. But this way we can go, okay, here's one part. Let's just take this part, put that there. Here's another part. We'll put that there. And we'll just get all these pieces. And then we have a mosaic. Then it's like a puzzle. Does this fit with that? Ah, yes, these two go together. So we've got this, you know. It was just a way to like build it piece by piece and to get out that sense of like, I wanted to say it my way. And then, you know, over time, it'll either wear well or it won't. I don't know if you've found this in your creative endeavors, but sometimes you're like so in love with an idea and a way of doing something, and you're like, it's got to be just like this. And you do it, and then like 6 months later, you're like, oh, that wasn't really very good. I mean, I loved it at the time, but it just didn't, you know. And then other things are like, wow, that really held up. So it's a way of kind of getting that out of your system and figuring that out in advance so that when you give it to a publisher, finally, when it's a real book, and you're still in love with it, but you're not in love with it with that sort of like infatuation that's blind to its flaws that you are right at the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of one of the good things about a zine, is just you can kind of get that out of your system, just love it to death and go, oh, all right, that wasn't, let me try that again, and then just do it again later or do it differently later. So yeah, that's my thought. I'm talking too much.
No.
I have two guests and I'm sitting here going, blah, blah, blah. And you're like going, oh God, shut up. Let me say one thing.
After making zines, I visited Chicago and also London and Tokyo to bring our zine and visiting the bookshop. It is the first time to visiting the Queen Bee's in Chicago and Hansman Bookshop and the book bookshop in London and Tokyo, etc. And then the zine is a good communication tool to talk.
Yeah,
start.
it is.
The
Good
people
to start conversations.
They don't know me,
Right.
and foreigner sometimes. Even though if people see the thing, oh, that's interesting. If they are not interested in them, even though they see the thing and touch and think about something and give me information and start talking about the information. Do you know the hobby? Oh, I know. Like that, starting the conversations. And I found in Tokyo such kind of alternative bookshop, independent bookshop. Even Tokyo, in Chicago, in London. I am so surprised. It is every person who have the person of the bookshop, they treat the zines. They're so kind and start talking and share some atmosphere and experience. So it's a different language and a different culture, different place. Even so, something the zine culture are there now.
Yeah.
So it's also interesting
Yeah.
to bring zine
Right.
by hand.
Right. Yeah. And that's somewhere you need to go while you're in the Midwest, is Quimby's in Chicago. It's basically a zine store. I don't know if they have anything else there. It's like and just every kind of, you can, it's like, oh, really? Someone made it? This is a zine? Whoa. Everything, just every kind of zine you can think of there. It's just Quimby's. I forget the street. Do you?
I don't know.
It's on our website. I
Next
don't know.
to the Hamburg.
Yeah,
The Hamburg shop.
Well, no, there's a barbecue place on the corner where we first had avocado toast.
Yes, that's a great.
That cultural moment.
Yeah, I don't remember the street. Well, we'll look it
They
up
have
for you.
two
But
kind of shops. One comics and one zine.
yeah, and it was really fun to just walk around and look at all the different zines and then kind of go, well, we have a zine, and one of the guys actually knew who the zine was about. He knew the person that we were writing about, and so he was interested in it, and so we gave him a copy. It was one of those like moments of sharing
And
something.
also
that
recently the more public library, local library,
Yeah.
they have a zine workshop for students or residents. I'm so interesting. It is a tool to express themselves easily. Of course, they can use the social network service,
Sure.
but the zine is a bit different medium, I think.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Well, we are rapidly approaching the end of the show here. Is there anything that you were hoping to say that you didn't, that you were just like bowled over by my blabbing and you couldn't get a word in edgewise?
Well, no, I guess it's worth mentioning that I'm looking for stories from undocumented folks. It's one of the reasons that I'm down in Champaign-Urbana, is I'm collecting stories from people that, are immigrants from any country. And my name's Kristen Bahler.
Okay.
We,
I'm wearing a striped dress. Though.
Right, I'm wearing a striped dress. No, if you could email me, My email is Kristen Lee Bahler, KristenLeeBahler @gmail.com. I would be much obliged.
Do they have to give their personal info or anything like that?
No.
For your story?
So obviously I'm happy to talk about this more over email or a phone conversation, but fake names are kind of commonplace when it comes to this kind of story. So
this is going to be a tough one for you because I don't know. You read all these stories where people somehow manage to find people to talk to, but around here, I can't count the different times someone's come up with the idea like, oh, let's do a video or do a story about, and it's like, you don't realize how hard it is to get people to talk. They don't want to talk.
I know.
I mean, I know any number of people that would be fascinating for you to talk to, but they won't talk to you.
For good reason.
I know that. And they won't even come on here and do. Some will come on the show occasionally, and some of the braver types or the ones who have less to lose or ones who are really willing to just sort of trust that nothing's going to happen because of it. Nobody listens to that show anyway. Who cares? That kind of thinking. But it's very difficult. So it's almost something you just have to kind of hang around a lot and just talk to people. And over time, eventually somebody will say something to you.
Right.
And then you can kind of pull something like we were talking, you can eventually tease things out that you want. But getting them to go on the record is really hard.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. But, I think as soon as they see I'm a good egg, I'm not going to publish anyone's info. I'm holding out hope that there's a story here yet.
How long are you going to be around?
Couple days.
Oh, a couple days. Okay, never mind.
I'll be back, though. I'll be back.
I was going to say that the university has an event called Quad Day, which is that next weekend?
This weekend.
This coming weekend? 27. Where basically different organizations put a booth up on the quad, and it's the whole thing is just covered with different people who have a table, and you've got your information, and then people come by. So every year, CU Immigration Forum goes out there, and I sit there all day broiling in the sun, and then people come up and talk to me, and I, every now and then I'll hear an interesting story. I mean, I'll actually have an exchange with somebody. Mostly it's just like, oh, candy, brochure,
Right.
Yeah.
what do you do? And then I tell them, they go, oh, okay, and then they walk away, and that's the sum total of it. But every now and then somebody will say, oh, I'm interested. When are your meetings? I want to know because my brother or my cousin or I or somebody is, has problems with immigration and we want help and, that kind of thing. So it's always worthwhile doing it, even though that it's mostly just sitting there watching people walk by going, are they getting younger? Am I getting older? Because they start shrinking and they're just like, no, actually they're growing. Young people are huge. Have you noticed that?
I'm quite short, so
You're probably
young
not
people
old
have
enough
always been.
But young people are really huge these days. It's like it used to be, for a while as I was growing up, they were getting smaller and I was getting bigger. And then at some point they started going that way. And then now it's like the taller they are, I figure the younger they are. They walk in and they're like their heads bumping the ceiling. You're just a kid. That's how I can tell. Anyway, on that note, I'm going to have to get us out of here. You have been listening to CU Immigration, although you wouldn't have known it too if you were paying attention to what we were talking about. But that was the name of the show. That's who we are. You can watch us on UPTV or YouTube. And you can visit us at Quad Day, because we'll be out there somewhere, usually kind of off to the side where the less interesting, more community-based things are located.